Hello and welcome, and thank you for your patience as we navigated a few technical challenges. We are so pleased that you are joining us for this virtual conversation, Paving the Way, brought to you today by Quest Science Center. I'm Susan Houghton, and I have the honor of moderating today's conversation with four remarkable women leaders in STEM. All are advocates for science, technology, math, and engineering. Each of them cares deeply about encouraging students to pursue careers in science and engineering, as well as advocating for individuals of all ages to tackle society's important questions and the challenges that benefit from a curious mind. Four women, four STEM advocates, four incredible journeys. Over the next hour or so, we'll hear their stories. What led them to their career of choice? Who inspired and supported their own roadmap? And how have they handled challenges? How did their past translate into prologue? And who are they today? And finally, we'll hear their thoughts on the future with specific ideas on how to inspire the next generation of STEM leaders, encourage a growth mindset, and what we can all do to pay it forward and help others regardless of gender, ethnicity, and have everyone get a seat at the table. So going forward, first let's do a special thank you. We are grateful to the companies and the individuals who've made Quest Virtual Conversation possible, including our premier sponsor, Workday. Our thanks to all for standing for science and for your commitment to supporting Quest as we work to connect everyone to the value of science. Our program today is designed to help all of us understand how we can make a difference. 2020 has been an unbelievable year on many levels and on a myriad of issues. But it's also a year where we can attest that science really does matter, and that's a good thing. As the astronomer Carl Sagan said, we live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. Sagan's quote is fortified by a recent State of Science Index survey by 3M Company, where 87% of the respondents indicated that we do need science to solve the world's problems. And while there is no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic may be responsible for science, perhaps having that Andy Warhol moment, we want to change that paradigm and ensure the trend continues upward. But how do we do that when only 50% of our students might be encouraged to pursue STEM careers? How do we do that when 36% of the respondents also say that only geniuses can pursue science? As part of our discussion today, we want to do a deeper dive on what can be done to encourage the next generation to know and appreciate science and technology. How can we get them ready for the jobs of the future? STEM jobs, societal impact jobs. We'll also address STEM equity issues, whether via gender, race, ethnicity, or simply a lack of access. And we'll brainstorm on how we can inspire all students to follow in the footsteps of STEM trailblazers, including our four panelists here today. They are helping entire generations build critical thinking and problem-solving skills. It will take all of us, companies, individuals, government, educators, parents, community leaders, all of us taking a stand for science and working together to make a difference to keep science at the forefront. And now let's meet our panelists. Falcone, Nan Ho, Camille Schrier, Jayshree Seth. We will all begin with their own brief introductions of who they are, the early opportunities that shaped their lives, as well as their myriad of accomplishments. Our first panelist, Dr. Falcone, is the Deputy Director for Science and Technology at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, one of the nation's premier applied science and research facilities. As one of the top leaders at the lab, Pat serves as the principal advocate for the lab's science and technology base, as well as its collaborative research portfolio. Pat joined the lab in 2015 after serving as Associate Director for Science, National Security and International Affairs at the White House Office of Science and Technology. Her accomplished resume includes both management and technical positions at Sandia, as well as advisory and trustee positions at Princeton University and Georgia Tech Research Corporation. Her undergraduate degree is from Princeton in aerospace and mechanical sciences. Her graduate and doctorate degrees are in mechanical engineering from Stanford. Pat, welcome. Please start us off and let's hear your story.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so pleased to be part of this panel today, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. And, you know, it's fun to think back because sometimes I know when I talk to people who had jobs, you thought they had it all figured out all along the way. But that's not really the way it was for me. I grew up moving around a lot. We moved just about every 2 years when I was in elementary school and junior high. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My dad was in the Air Force. I was fortunate that we settled down just a bit so that I could go to high school in San Antonio, Texas. And I liked math and I liked reading. I suppose that's what I liked the most, and I didn't have real good ideas about what I would do. But I ended up going to college in New Jersey. And I ended up saying that I wanted to major in engineering because some folks had told me that if you liked math and you liked science, but you really wanted to do something with it, you should be an engineer. And that's really pretty much what I knew about engineering. And one of the great things that happened to me as an undergraduate was that I had an opportunity to do research and to really work on a project that was related to how we measure air pollution in new ways. And so I think that's what really kept me in engineering, was just the fun of working on something that wasn't just doing classes all the time, and it actually made the classes more interesting. I continued to do experimental work as I did my graduate work, and I had the great honor then of coming here to Livermore for my first job and my longest job working at Sandia. And I worked on things like new kinds of energy generation for electricity, like big solar plants, like using aircraft engines to make electricity. And I worked on things like high altitude rocket plumes. At the beginning of President Obama's administration, I had the great honor of being invited to join the Office of Science and Technology Policy. And there we work on the science for policy and the policy for science. And that was just a lot of fun. It was learning a lot, working on whatever problems came, and trying to reach out to scientists and engineers all over the country to get some answers. But what's really been fun is getting to come back to Livermore to work at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And my job now is more of an engineering manager. And I work hard on getting money to our researchers to make sure that we have really strong science, and helping hire and helping plan some of our research. And when things work out, celebrating it. And we work, and I've gotten to work, as I said, on clean energy, on how do you think about detecting dangerous things from terrorists, things like chemical weapons that have been used in Syria most recently. How do you think about making new materials that can do really interesting things that you might use in space? And how do you use big computers? At Livermore, we have some of the biggest computers in the world and a set of really great people to work with. So what's fun about what I've had the chance to do is I've done a lot of learning. I've had great people to work with, and I've worked on really hard, important problems that made a difference. So it's been fun, and I love what I'm still doing, and I think that I didn't know I would have so much fun working as an engineer. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Pat. It's always so important to love what you're doing, and that's one of the themes we're going to talk about a little today. You know, do what you love, and then hopefully you can make money at it and make wonderful challenges and accomplishments work. So our next panelist, Nan Ho, is currently the Dean of Science, Technology, Engineering, Math, STEM at Las Positas College in Livermore. As a beloved and inspired faculty member for more than 20 years, she's created a number of vital programs that connect education, industry, and community partners and inspire students in their academic and career pathways. She's been honored with 9 impressive awards, including the John and Susan Roche Excellence Award, Unity Award, Outstanding Faculty, and is a 3-time recipient of the Chancellor's Award and Outstanding Teacher Award. Nan serves as the advisory board member for Quest, the Bay Nature Institute, and on the institutional biosafety committees for both Sandia National Laboratory and Daybreak Labs. Her degrees, BS and MS in biology, are from Stanford University. Nan, take us back to those formative years.
Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm also very excited for our conversation today. So let me show you my pictures. It was really fun to kind of go back and look for pictures because we didn't have cell phones back then. So what you see there on the left is me as a little girl. I love the outdoors, and my family loved the outdoors. So we spent a lot of time outdoors. And this was on the East Coast in the Northeast. And then at some point, our family moved to the Southeast. And when we moved to the Southeast, I started school and proceeded to kind of take all sorts of courses and just enjoy being a kid, playing outdoors a lot, going swimming, all sorts of things. And when I was in high school, I started to become really interested in student government and public service. And so I began to be really active in Model UN, those types of activities. And so I thought I was going to go into some type of social science. But here's the really funny thing. So I'm on a STEM panel today, and you wonder, where did that come from? Well, so in the lower left-hand corner of that of our slide there, you see a marshmallow. And the marshmallow is there because I had a really interesting experience when I was in junior high. We were doing a science fair project, and I found that I was thinking of ideas, and I noticed that we were roasting marshmallows in our backyard. And I said, wow, these marshmallows taste really sweet after they're roasted. So I did a science fair project on that, and amazingly, I actually won the grand champion for that project, which seems so simple, yet it really worked wonderfully. And maybe that was the germ of my scientific career. Then I also, like Pat, went to Stanford, where I started in a social science degree. And then I noticed everyone was taking these STEM courses. So I said, I thought I'd try that myself. And pretty soon I was going, oh, this is really fantastic. I love it. And I became a double major. And then at some point I said, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on biology, and I got a couple of degrees there. As I continued on to graduate school some more, and as I was doing that, I did a lot of teaching. And I started to feel this calling that, wow, students are incredible. And I can't believe my good fortune, because I began to start teaching at Las Positas College, where I am now, and I've been here for 25 years. I could not believe I was given this job, because once I got here, I realized that I could create and curate my life. And it was all about the students. So what you see there are students in the lab with me. What joy I had in there. You also see a picture of me with a student at a poster session. So this is, we're a 2-year college. And so we began a project here where students got to do research in their freshman and sophomore years, and actually learn to present in a poster session. And last year we had about 70 or 80 posters, which is really remarkable for a community college to have that opportunity. And we had lots of faculty who are really interested in this opportunity for students. So over on the right-hand side, you see a series of pictures, and another part of my life has really been about building partnerships with the community and with industry. In the upper right, you see some students, and this is at Sandia National Lab. These are, Sandia is a wonderful partner for our college, took our interns, and this is their poster session after spending a summer there doing research. In the middle, you see the Joint Genome Institute. That's a DNA spiral going through there. And again, trying to connect our students with the resources of the scientific community And we've been very fortunate that all of the local organizations and national labs have been so generous with our students. So that's a field trip there that we went to the Joint Genome Institute. And one of the really cool things about the Joint Genome Institute is that over my career, the whole place used to just be sequencers, and the sequencers were enormous. And now the sequencer fits in essentially the size of a USB stick. So remarkable transformation of the field. And in the lower right-hand corner, you see the 10-year celebration of a partnership with Lawrence Livermore National Lab, where Pat is, where we had brought the wonderful science and engineering cutting-edge work done at the National Lab and brought it to our community. And that includes our students, our faculty, and our greater community. And that was our 10-year celebration last fall prior to COVID. So I have been so fortunate because after I taught for 20 years as faculty member, I took on a new role and I became the dean for science, technology, engineering, and math. And again, I could not believe my good fortune to have this job where my goal and my mission is to give the support to all of those students and faculty and staff to give those opportunities to our students. And so it's just a delight. I have fun every day. And then I also have a couple of things in the middle of that slide where I became a docent at the Oakland Zoo, so back to my love of nature and the outdoors. And also I'm on the board for Bay Nature. So lots of exciting things happen in my life, and it maybe all started with a marshmallow.
I love that. And staying curious, that's what's really important. 1 year ago, in December 2019, our next panelist experienced a historic moment when she was crowned as the very first scientist to become Miss America. Camille Schrier, a former Miss Virginia, graduated with honors from Virginia Tech with dual degrees in biochemistry and systems biology. Not only is she the first scientist to be crowned Miss America, she's the first to do a lab experiment in her talent, the catalytic decomposition of hydrogen peroxide, also known as elephant's toothpaste. And in this unusual year, Camille has taken her social platform as Miss America to a new level, focusing on both drug safety and abuse prevention, but also by introducing science at home experiments via YouTube to showcase that science is really all around us. She's also created great videos for Quest, which you can find on our website. And she'll be the first Miss America to serve longer than 1 year, as the pageant that's typically held this month will be postponed to mid-2021. In addition to her duties as Miss America, Camille is pursuing a doctorate of pharmacy with a specific emphasis on circadian rhythm at Virginia Commonwealth University. She's also showcasing how stereotypes of both being Miss America as well as being a science nerd, as she calls herself, are labels meant to be broken. Camille, you're about to show us a great, kind of a mad scientist photo. How old are you in this first photo on the left?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for the introduction, Susan. That photo on the left is quite literally me at 5 years old. And it's interesting because we saw some of the programs as the slideshow was going through before the program started of the summer programs that Quest offers. And this was a similar program that I went to when I was in elementary school. And I will tell you, I think, I'm a different side of a story when we think about what Nan just shared with us. I always loved everything science related from the minute I was a child and a young elementary student. It was something that I was always drawn to. And so it was never a matter of if I was going to pursue some type of a STEM career. It was always a matter of what I wanted to pursue, because there are so many different STEM careers. And I think that, we talk about STEM so much with students, but it can sometimes be confusing when you're trying to find your place. And I got to a point where I had to find my place in STEM. I tried a lot of different career paths. I even tried a university and an undergraduate program that didn't work out for me. And I had to learn through those processes that it's okay to explore. It's okay to take a risk and for something to not work out, because I think there's so much pressure on students now to have everything figured out at a young age. And I know I felt that myself when I was a senior in high school. And now looking back, I'm glad that I went through those struggles and that I learned and that I tried new things and they didn't work out. I think it taught me a lot. It's pretty much like how science works. If you try an experiment, you think something's going to work one way and then you try it and it doesn't. It's part of the learning process, and I think that it's kept me curious, to use the word that Quest uses often. And I never thought that science would play a role in me becoming Miss America. And what I will say also is that I never thought I was going to be Miss America. It was nothing that was really on my radar. As a kid, I was more interested in being in the dirt with bugs and frogs and all that kind of stuff. I was never really interested in the girly things. But as I got older, I wanted to expand my public speaking skills. I wanted to learn how to interview, how to present myself. And competing in organizations similar to Miss America gave me the opportunity to do that as a teenager. And then I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to focus on school. But you mentioned that I am in graduate school now. And so last year, you get those moments where you're a little overwhelmed and you're looking for something else to exert some energy on. So I decided to sign up for my local competition to go to Miss Virginia. And it was a way for me to earn some scholarship money and, potentially advocate for a good cause like drug safety and abuse prevention. So I figured it would be a great extracurricular activity. Maybe I could earn a little bit of money for books for the next semester. And I ended up winning, and it was all because of science. And it turns out that talent competition that they have at Miss America, you don't just have to sing or dance at that. There's no rule that says that you do. You can bring a science demonstration and do that on stage, and that is exactly what I did. So you can see in these images here, that was me being crowned Miss Virginia all the way on the left, and then those right two photos are me of Miss America. And I love that one in the middle especially because I think that seeing me there as the glamorous Miss America with my crown and my sash with glassware in front of me and my lab coat on is what I would hope young people could see in Miss America. That, you can be glamorous, you can be feminine, but you can also be a scientist, and that you don't have to choose between those things. You can be a scientist and have one of these. This is my special Miss America crown. And I often bring it into schools with me as a way to be the science princess for kids that I meet and give them a different perspective of what a scientist looks like. And I will note that I think it's exceptionally important not only for young girls, but for young boys to see successful adult women in STEM, because when they get into the workforce, that's going to be so normalized that we will hopefully get to a point where we don't have to always talk about women in STEM anymore, because it's so normal to have girls in STEM. We need to make it normal. And I'm really excited to have this year and next year as Miss America to have the opportunity to talk to so many young people across the country and share my love of science.
Thank you, Camille. There's a great quote by Star Trek Lieutenant Uhura that I love, that science is not a girl's game, it's not a boy's game, it's everyone's game. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for sharing that story with us. Our next presenter, our panelist, really has many hats that she wears and probably doesn't need too much of an introduction if you've seen some of her books and her poems. Dr. Jayshree Seth, she wears many hats. She's the chief science advocate at 3M Company in St. Paul, Minnesota. She's a speaker, a thought leader, a poet, and an author of this great book, The Heart of Science, Engineering, Footprints, Fingerprints, and Imprints. Love that title. She's a corporate scientist who holds 70 patents for a variety of inventions and leads the Applied Technology Development Project for the Industrial Adhesives and Tapes Division at 3M. Jayshree has a master's and PhD in chemical engineering from Clarkson University in New York, with an undergraduate degree from the National Institute of Technology in India. She was recently honored with the Society of Women Engineers' Highest Achievement Award and is the fourth woman and first woman engineer to be inducted into 3M's Carleton Society for Science and Engineering Excellence. As the chief science advocate, Jayshree is passionate about teaching, coaching, and mentoring, using her scientific knowledge and technical expertise to advance the benefits of science and cultivate a new generation of STEM advocates. Jayshree, we are so happy to have you here. Welcome, and please share your story with us.
Thank you, Susan. So first, places and phases. I'm originally from India, and I marked the 3 places across the country that have certainly shaped my thinking. And then when I was very young, we lived in England for a few years, so that's up there as well. I only remember a few things, but the reason why it's important to bring it up is that kind of early exposure and experience that actually shaped my parents' thinking, and I've been a beneficiary of that. Next is USA, New York State, where I did my graduate school, and then Minnesota, which has been home for almost 28 years now. And I thought my face really hadn't changed much, as I got older, till my daughter said one day, "You used to be cute. What happened to you?" Nothing like teenagers to keep it real, is there? But I'm happy to say, hey, at least I'm on the cover of a tween magazine. So there, face it. On that note, next slide. In case I look familiar or my voice sounds familiar, it's because I'm the scientist from the 3M ads that have been playing on national TV. It started in late 2019 with the World Series, and then also early 2020. And in these 3 ads, I was actually excited to bring forward what I think is at the heart of my journey in science. I'm a corporate scientist at 3M, which is the highest scientist level at the company. And I'm also the 3M's chief science advocate, which was a new role that was created to advocate for science. So I wanted to showcase the fact that application of science, it's a journey. It's not a single genius moment. And that science is about collaborating and working together with people to build on ideas. And finally, in the 3rd ad, wanted to showcase that what we do as scientists is about helping people and improving lives. And that is really the central message in my science advocacy platform as well, because I'm really committed to inspiring more girls and underrepresented minorities in STEM, and breaking down these barriers that, science is for genius, or science is for loners, or socially awkward geeks, and that science has nothing to do with helping people. None of these are true. And I talk about that in my newly released book. Thank you, Susan, for showing the book. In 2020, I was honored to be awarded the highest honor by Society of Women Engineers. So I worked with them to publish The Heart of Science, and all the proceeds will go to a scholarship for underrepresented minority women in STEM. So hope you all will support and make hashtag 2020 count. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm excited to be here today with these esteemed panelists.
Thank you, Jayshree. Really appreciate that explanation. One of the things that I want to talk about now is really go into a past and a present and a future opportunity. And you guys have shared some great opportunities about your past. One of the things that seems to me that is a panel congruent to all of you is the importance of mentors. And Jayshree, you had a wonderful acronym with STEM that you used. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I often get asked, I am not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a STEM professional, but how do I help promote STEM? And so I say, yes, everyone can give their voice to STEM. And here STEM is sponsors, teachers, enthusiasts, and mentors. And you can give them your voice. V is for volunteering. Many, many opportunities to volunteer in schools and at science and technology fairs. Nan just talked about being at the science fair, and there are a lot of volunteers that it takes to actually put that together. O is for organizing. Many communities lack connections to, such events, such as STEM Career Days. So, if you have kids in school, you can email their teacher and proactively ask if they need any specialists or any help in organizing events. You can ask company HR and philanthropy teams about organizing mentorship programs with local nonprofits. So that takes care of organizing. I is for inspiring, showing kids how science solves problems. Just what Camille talked about, and discuss the resilience that scientists have that helps solve problems and how you address setbacks, and so inspire them to solve problems. Then there's championing, making the case for science-based program and funding in your community or through the company that you work for, championing to bring more STEM tools in the local schools and communities. Through corporate or civic involvement and advocacy, you can improve that perception about science. And finally, simply engaging. Let the ordinary seem extraordinary. I am so excited to hear Nan's story about marshmallows. You know, it's like such an ordinary thing, but it became extraordinary in her journey. So, engaging in conversations that draw out someone's natural curiosity and wonder, and engaging in learning together. Discuss the things around that might seem mundane, but are anything but. So you can give your voice by volunteering, organizing, inspiring, championing, and engaging. So I've got many more of these mental post-it notes in my book.
In the STEM. You know, let's talk about math for a little bit. AAUW actually did a study in 2010 where they were talking about that about 3rd grade to 5th grade, girls really lose interest in math. And sometimes women and girls are encouraged to go into more of the humanities and more of the languages, where boys are encouraged to go into math. Did that happen to any of you, and how did you handle those challenges?
I can speak
I know
to
you
that.
have a great story, Pat, about math. You told me this story.
Well, I always liked math. I know that I changed schools in junior high and didn't really fit into the math level that I was supposed to be in, but my parents were great advocates of just stepping up and trying. And so I was in that class for some time before I quite figured out what was going on, but I did figure it out. So I suppose, but I think math matters. And math fluency matters. And we can't, and I do think it is an issue for women that we've got to deal with. I'm guessing now that I'm thinking about it that I told you a story about a White House event that I attended that was in honor, a very nice White House event that was in honor of some new policies at the Science Foundation to support women faculty who had young children, and about how, you know, funds could be used for paying for babysitters when they went to a conference if it was needed with a new child. Funds could be used to support a laboratory while they were away. And so there were many of us senior women in the government who were in this event, and also some very splashy speakers. And 2 of these speakers in a row, very, very distinguished people, stood up and said to all of us, well, you know, I was really never very good at math, so I became a lawyer. And it was really, we were all so unhappy that grown women that, you know, who were so terrific. I mean, these were incredibly smart and capable women, but the fact that somehow it's allowed to be said, oh, I was never very good at math, so I didn't do it. Because we would never say, oh, I was never very good about reading. I mean, we just know what it takes to have all the tools at hand to be a grown-up and a citizen. And so it is true with respect to math. And I did write a long letter, and I thought I was the only one that was offended, actually. And it turned out that virtually all, because these were my friends, and we figured out we all had the same view, and it kind of became a touchstone about being careful. But I do think you got to take math. It's really about organizing ideas and learning to train your brain, and brains don't just come one way. It's like playing the piano. It's like athletics. You have to keep practicing. And there's some things you just need to know how to do. Reading is one, understanding and thinking quantitatively is another. And I do think, and my own experience has been, that sometimes women can act as though this is a optional skill at a certain point in education. And I just think it isn't. And that doesn't mean you all have to become engineers or scientists, but it's very important for our citizens to be able to think quantitatively. It's very important for just about any job to have a fluency. And then if you really have fun with it, like all of us do, then you might be able to be and have fun being a scientist and engineer. But taking math, I think, is not an option. You need to take math.
Right. So this has been an incredible year for women on many levels. You know, you don't have to look at science, but I want to look at science. It's also Major League Baseball that we've seen. I just read recently that California has its first woman commander of the CHP. It's been, of course, we all know about Camille Harris as the first woman of color and first woman female vice president. But we also had 3 women win Nobel Prizes this year in physics and in chemistry. How did you all feel when you heard that news? Nan, what did you think when you realized, especially local here from UC Berkeley, that we had 3 women? And 2 of the women, it was the first time that they'd never had a male collaborator in that field, which is incredible.
Well, I was delighted. This is something that you read about when you are in college, right? When we were in college, we would learn about the Nobel laureates. We would read all the seminal papers. But even many years ago, we would go visit Berkeley with my students, and we would walk by, the various labs, and then we would start talking about Jennifer Doudna, and I said, she's going to get a Nobel Prize. She's going to get a Nobel Prize. She has changed the world. So she did. And it's not surprising because the technology, the CRISPR technology, has really changed everything about how biology is done. And it used to be, just like I was talking about when we were at the Joint Genome Institute, the entire thing was all giant sequencers everywhere. I mean, people would do their entire dissertation to sequence just a few hundred base pairs. And now you can do that very, very quickly. So there's technology, all of these jumps, and just advance our ability to understand the natural world. And a lot of these jumps occur because of all the people working in these fields. So you need technicians, you need a fluid mechanics, you need someone to engineer these instruments. And so when you see someone, these Nobel laureates win, that they have been surrounded by tremendous other people supporting that work, and it's reached a point where it's become life-changing and world-changing. So I was delighted.
So I think you're bringing up a point about Nobel laureate. Not everyone has to be a Nobel laureate in order to succeed in science. And I know, Jayshree, you've done some impressive work with 3M that looked at that genius index, or misnomer to say, in which people thought you have to be a genius to be a scientist. We know that's not true.
Right. We actually found in our 2017 survey that was launched, the results were revealed in 2018, that 36% of the people said you have to be a genius to have a career in science, which is not true at all. So we have all these myths that are stopping people from actually pursuing science careers. And that is a really big one, because who's going to self-select themselves out based on that. It's going to be, more girls and more underrepresented minorities. So this is something that we absolutely have to address. And the way to do it is, I say, we need steam cleaning. And here's another acronym for you, Susan. Steam cleaning is about shattering stereotypes, which the ladies who won the Nobel Award are doing. And many others, almost, anybody that you meet in STEM careers and is underrepresented, or a woman or a minority, is shattering stereotypes. T is for telling the wholesome story. And this goes back to what Nan was also saying, how do you tell that story that Pat was saying math is important. So you have to tell that wholesome story, which also provides the context of why you need to know math. And then E is for exposure and environment. Without that, people are not going to opt for STEM careers because they don't know what it entails, what you can do with those. And the only reason why I am a STEM professional today is because my dad was a university professor, and I grew up on the campus of a university engineering institution. I had absolutely no idea in my mind that I want to be a science and engineering type. I was very much drawn to humanities subjects because I saw that contextual pull. So exposure and environment is important. And A is allies and advocates. And that's men. Men need to be allies and advocates in this. It's not a zero-sum game. We're all going to benefit from it. No one monolithic group is going to be able to address all the problems that we face. And we have a lot of problems, a lot of sustainability challenges that we need everybody to have the seat at the table to creatively solve. And M is for metrics and measures. And this is important. Without that, apparently things don't change. So we need some really bold metrics and measures in place. And then we've got the train on the right track. It's a steam engine that could.
one of the metrics and measures that I've seen come, and first of all, we got to compliment you on all your acronyms, because we're going to have a test after this
I
to
love
figure
it.
out how we remember all of these. They're great. I'm so impressed with your creativity. But leaky pipeline, that's a phrase we've heard a lot. And Camille, you probably had peers in your college days, undergraduate and master's program, where you had a lot of colleagues who maybe were dropping out and students dropping out. Do you have any advice as to how to stop that leaky pipeline so that, for the purpose of our audience, students who go through and graduate still continue to be that biologist or chemist and actually get jobs in that career? Camille, what do you think we should do about that?
Yeah, especially as someone who just came out of my undergraduate experience, I think that one of the really leaky pieces of the pipeline that I see are students that start in a STEM degree or undergraduate program and then realize mid-pursuit that, oh my gosh, this is getting really hard, and then they change it. Or they do really bad in one class and they change it. And I almost fell into that because I actually took an analytical chemistry class in college, and I really struggled that semester academically and focusing. It was just, there were so many distractions, and I ended up getting a D+ in that class. And I wasn't able to continue on to my next chemistry course or use it for my degree program. And as someone who always was really, really focused on my academics, I was completely like earth shattered at that point. I was like, I have to change my degree program. I can't do this. I got a D in the chemistry class. How could I ever graduate with a biochemistry degree? And I'm glad that I didn't switch my major because I thought about it, but that trap is the one that I see so many of my peers and friends fall into, is that they have that one bad class, or maybe they have one bad experience or a bad internship, and they think that it's kind of the end all be all for them. And I would say stick with it. Even if you're a high school student, maybe you don't do well on that AP exam, keep with it. If it's something that you really like, if it was easy, first of all, everyone would do it. Number two, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be something that you get an A in every single course. And I think, to go with what Jayshree had said, you don't have to be a genius to do it. You don't have to be perfect. So stick with it. You can repeat the class. I repeated my course. I got an A in it. Sometimes it's just about changing your environment, trying something again. I'm really glad that I was not the person to fall into that trap.
I think that idea of failure is so important. And I know, Nan, you changed your major and decided you were going to go into STEM. Tell us about that.
Well, so when I started college, I was going to be in international relations and continue that arc of my life, which was about public service and government. And then, I remember my class, and this is, I'll have to do a shout out for all teachers, because I will bet that each one of us has had a teacher, or many, many teachers, those mentors that have just touched our lives. I remember those specific teachers, the specific lessons they taught, or the specific example they gave that just blew my mind. And when I saw that, I remember organic chemistry. I fell in love with organic chemistry because of a TA. And so, and I just could see electrons. And I hadn't been able to see electrons, and now I could see electrons. I also remember a metal biologist, which was my area, and he started just talking about the math of cell division. Oh my goodness, connecting math to cell division, how exciting is that? And so you get these magical moments in your life, and it really changes the trajectory of your life. The other thing I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Camille was talking about, I also in college, one time I had to do what's called a failure resume. You all should try it. Write a resume based on all your failures. It is hilariously fun. Wow. And it's also very revealing about, you start picking up themes about, what did you encounter? What kind of barriers did you encounter? Anyway, so part of this was I had taken a course, and I did terribly. I had too much fun in college, and I wasn't studying. But even still, I persisted, just like Camille did. And I said, okay, that's okay. I'll just forget that's on my transcript, and I'll just keep moving. And recently I've been reading some really wonderful work about growth mindset. And that is the idea that our brains are malleable. that our abilities are malleable, meaning they can change and that we can put effort into them and we can develop those abilities and skills. And whether you're taking math and it's hard, you can learn to figure out, okay, I didn't do well on that. I'm going to come right back. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to learn from my teachers. You really want to lean in on your teachers, lean in on your peers. So anyway, so where was I going with this? You just see this incredible ability to be affected by these teachers. And I was recently reading this article about the attitude of the teacher is a better predictor of the success of students than any other part of the teacher's profile, their demographics, whether they're a male or a female, how many years they've been teaching. Do they teach in a flipped classroom? Their ethnicity, their age, their experience. None of those are as strong a predictor of how their students will do other than their own growth mindset attitude towards their students. Because when you have a growth mindset as a teacher, you create an environment and you communicate information to your students in a very different way. You know they can do it, and you provide the support and the scaffolds that they need to in order to do that. So a big shout out to teachers, profound influence on my life at every moment. And that's not just the in-classroom teachers, it's teachers that we encounter every day in our lives.
And that growth mindset extends not just from education, but also into the workforce. And I know, Pat, at the lab, that's a very important part of being able to go between disciplines, directorates at the lab, work on teams, find your place and how you can contribute. How is that working? What are you doing to help encourage women at the laboratory?
Well, I think that what's great about the laboratories, and the Department of Energy has 17 of the laboratories, Livermore has 2 in its own town, but is that they practice team science. And another myth that we haven't talked about in the myth busting so far is that it's such a solitary pursuit. In fact, especially engineering, but science too, and big science, it's teams. And so when you're working in teams, what that means is that you're bringing your tool set, but you're not expected to understand everything, but you've got to come up to speed to understand the problem. So a big part of the skills are learning new things. And so you become those teachers, those terrific teachers that Camille and Nan have already talked about for each other. And that's, I think, the fun of it, is always learning new things. But you've got to be willing to be humble, because there's so many complex problems. And it's like dealing with COVID now. The laboratories are all part of the national effort on understanding the science of COVID, and the science of how the disease works, the science of how transmission works, the science about different mitigation measures that we're trying, and of course, the science of vaccines and measures that we think can put this to bed eventually. And the point is, we didn't know anything about SARS coronavirus 2. And so this issue about always learning and sometimes not getting it right. I mean, I think both Camille and Nan are just right on the money. You never are right about everything. You never figure things out the first time. It's about caring enough about the answer to keep trying. And in the labs, we work in teams. And so the team has to benefit from all the experiences that people have, or the tool sets. Someone might be a really good analytical chemist. Someone might really hate that stuff. And, but they're really a good physicist. And, you sort of sort out, you're always focused on the question you're trying to answer, and how do you bring those skills to answer it? And, at our lab, we publish things early on just taking that genetic sequence that was known and figuring out what it might look like before we'd actually made any measurements on actual virus. And so there's just really interesting questions, and they're hard. And if you ask the hard questions that our society cares about, that's the privilege of working on these big governmental problems, is, how are we going to address COVID-19? How are we going to know what is a way to help us get out of this climate situation? Are there ways that we can help with that, and trying different things? Is there a way to make new materials that don't leave a pollution trail behind, or to recycle materials? So all of these skills, they're not just any one thing you learn. They're not just math. They're not just reading. They're not just teaching. So I think everything about real jobs is about learning, about failing, and about persisting.
And as we have access to science and to be able to have educators and parents and family members encourage us, there's still a population out there that doesn't have access to science. And we do see some inequality. What is your hope if we were to project in the next 5 years or 10 years? We saw the State of Science Index, Jayshree, go up significantly this year, of people having faith in science because of COVID and because of all that has come to the forefront. We don't want it to be an Andy Warhol moment with that 15 minutes of fame. We want to continue to be able to do still that very good work, but make science accessible to everyone. How do we make science accessible to everyone? Jayshree, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem across the spectrum, I think. We have to all collectively address it. And this involves everyone, which means, government and NGOs and academia and corporations, and down to the individual, really. Because we are not going to succeed in cracking these problems if we don't have that level of diversity in our solution sets and in those who are looking for solutions. So, and it isn't just that. Even with, as Pat talked about vaccine, it's very important to have diversity in that itself, so that the adaptation and the sort of adoption and all of that is accelerated. So across the board, I think it's very important. So at 3M, for example, we are very active in STEM encouragement. So we've spent $41 million last year alone in STEM related endeavors, and STEM equity is a big one. We just announced a $50 million social justice fund, and STEM equity is an important piece of that as well. And then it's a lot of programs that help educators, that help teachers, that help underserved communities. And actually we go and visit as scientists. We bring them to our centers in the communities that we operate in. So it's about exposure, it's about, experimentation, giving them opportunities to observe, to question, to hypothesize, and then fostering excitement. This is about them feeling that they may, have to customize to their interest and style of learning. So creative ideas, field trips, and problem solving. I think putting that narrative of problem solving is going to really inspire many to go the extra mile. But I think it's collectively, everybody has to do that. And a big part of that is also the public perception of science. I think we have to do a lot more to make sure, like you said, it's not just a moment that people evaluate science in. It's got to be an understanding that people have that science is important, and it's important for our survival. And we have to do our part to raise that awareness. So it's across the spectrum, and it also involves everybody. I like to say, the real shtick is STEM. It's science, humanities, technology, engineering, and math. And until we get that part of it really in the forefront, it's going to be hard to succeed.
I agree,
I have to throw one in there, Susan.
Yeah,
I love it.
And
So we're talking about being
so
curious,
delighted
that makerspace, that ability to fail, having the great mentors, having the people who said, let's go do an experiment. Several of you talked about having cooking as that first experiment and how that led to the love of science. Love the failure idea, the fact that, you can fail. It's not good scientists do fail because it's part of that process. And being able to then take that risk and work in teams and understand that it's not just one person, it's working together as a whole. It means being a science advocate, which all of you are. But not everyone is in STEM now as a science advocate. So how, just very briefly before we go into our last segment, if you could give one piece of advice to our students, our parents out there, our educators, our corporation, our government, on how they can advocate for science? And if they're not a scientist, what would that be? Nan, can you kick us off briefly?
Well, I love what Jayshree said about problem solving. I think that at every age, we solve problems every day. And sometimes I think we make science feel like it's, I'm going to go into a science room. Like now I can do science. Well, you're doing science every single time you solve a problem. So if your car doesn't start, you know, the weather's different than what you thought it was going to be. You drop something that you didn't think you would drop. Those are all problems. And we do it every day. We observe, we think, we hypothesize, and we try not to do it again. And I want to go back to this idea of failure. I know there are parents in the audience. Failure is essential. One of my favorite examples that I used to use with my students is if you take a soda can, it is engineered to fail, or you could not drink out of it. So you can't open it unless it fails. Yeah, right. It's frank.
How you look. Camille, what are your thoughts?
Goodness, I think more than anything, not pressuring students to go in a certain direction because you think it's the right place for them. I know that for me, as someone who was a young woman who loved science, technology, engineering, and math, I felt pushed by my school system to go in a certain direction that was kind of told to be right for me, when in reality there was a whole different opportunity out there that was a better fit for me. And as an impressionable young person, I went to the path that everyone told me to go to, and that didn't work out in my benefit. So for students to explore and follow where you think your talents and passions are, and don't let people tell you what you're going to do with your life, because that's up to you. And then for parents and teachers to encourage your students to have their own decisions and opinions, and don't pressure them to be in a place where you think that they want to be. Give them the flexibility to just discover that themselves.
Wonderful advice. Pat, your thoughts?
Well, I think I would talk about community connections. I think that healthy communities really are about making connections so that all students can see different kinds of futures and different kinds of jobs, because our healthy communities are going to have all kinds of people. And that's been fun as a parent, that my husband and I did science fair things, but we really benefited from people who knew a lot more about banking and career day, and who knew about nursing. And so what helps kids, I think, is when there's a community that makes connections for all the kids, and so they can see something they're not seeing at home, and where the institutions make connections, where the school district is linked to the community college and is linked to the employers, and that you have informal science opportunities on YouTube, as well as in a place like the Quest Science Center and others that exist, and researchers, right? I don't think we want to give the impression that it's only one thing. It's about strong communities in which science and problem solving is an element, but all the other rich parts of our community are all connected, and that is visible to every child growing up, both getting the skills, but seeing all the different opportunities.
It's a take a village kind of thought process.
Yeah.
That it takes all of us together. Mm-hmm. So, and then finally, Jayshree.
Yeah, I think I'll pick up exactly where Pat left off. I think it's about the total package. And I think we turn things into very one-dimensional. And there's so much more to it. So it's the art of science, the beauty of the scientific method, the mystery in science, the drama, the intrigue, the challenges, the satisfaction of solving problems, investigative journalism, finding and uncovering information, detective work, asking a lot of questions, tracking down leads, putting the clues together, or the pieces together like an artist to see this mosaic you have built, developing a compelling narrative like a storyteller, convincing yourself and then presenting a case like a lawyer, inspiring others to join like a leader, expert craftsmen to build the tools that are necessary. There's so much more, painting the vision of where to go next. And the science process has it all. Whether it's like I was working for tapes to keep diapers on wiggly babies, or tapes that go in phones, or tapes that go into planes, trains, or automobiles. It's always the story that sticks. So let's make it a very wholesome story as opposed to a very one-dimensional one.
And you don't have to be just one thing. You can be many things. And to your point, very well-rounded and choose to do different things as part of your lives at different times. So ladies, I can't believe our time has gone quickly. And as we close, I know that you've got some very good stories and inspiration that you want to share. What we're going to do now is have you share your slides as part of this. And I think we'll start off with you. Pat, you've got a great mantra or quote that you can share with us?
Sure. Well, I always like to, when I talk to students about the lab, I always talk about our lab as being a place of extreme curiosity. And that's the kind of people that we have. And so I really have two things here. One, be curious. And we've talked about being curious. But I also have a quote here from the founder of the Bay Area Maker Faire, Adam Savage, who, in addition to being curious, know that everything you make is a story about yourself. So it's about being curious, about thinking, about making, and about innovating. So I just think curiosity is just the right mindset to start with, but also to think about moving beyond that to doing something with it.
Thank you, Pat. Nan, I think you're next with us, and I love your slide that you're about to show because it's quite, from what I understand, it's something your students kept saying to you. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I think... So one of my favorite things, and this is a craft, teaching is an art, and it took a while. And I realized that you don't have to know the answer. So oftentimes I would just ask the student anytime they had a question, what do you think? And they would get to the answer by themselves, sometimes with a little support, but it's all there. And they just need your support to help you to get there. And I wanted to share with you this. One of the reasons that the bird is on the slide is I learned this from an incredible birder that I took a class from once. And we were all with our binoculars looking at a bird on a perch really high on a tree. And we were all trying to figure out what do you think it is? What do you think it is? And our birder teacher said, I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, you will stop looking. And that's kind of been my mantra. So what do you think? You can do it. And I got a reputation and I think it's the ultimate compliment from any student, for any teacher, that they called my answer, what do you think, as a mancer. So that was an ultimate compliment. Yes, because I would never answer their question.
That's so great. It's so right. Absolutely. Because if you don't ask, you might get some new ideas as to what it might be as part of that. Camille, you have brought science to so many and such a new audience this year. What is your mantra that you want to share with us?
Goodness. Well, first I'll say, Nan, that one brought me back to being in high school and in college and being that frustrated student who wanted the answer but didn't get it. So thank you for being that professor. Mine is really, this particular saying has been part of my experience as Miss America from the very beginning. When I do my science demonstration on stage for students and really the audience when I'm competing, I finish it with science really is all around us, because one of my main goals this year as Miss America and someone going into schools is to show students who may not even have a, inherent, natural, intrinsic interest in science, that even if it's not their passion, that it's around them every day, that it's important to every single thing that they do or what they care about or what they enjoy, that science is important for all of us. It makes our entire life go round. And I hope that that's the message that even those students who aren't meant to be STEM professionals, because I don't believe that it is a career for everyone. You should follow your talents and passions, but remember that science is behind pretty much every single thing that we do every day.
And of course, that's something we believe at Quest as well, and bringing it so that it's accessible to everyone. Jayshree, our last slide is yours, and I love this image that you have on here. I think this is another book that you wrote. Namaste, Namaste. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I used to transliterate nursery rhymes into Hindi, which is my mother tongue. I wanted to make sure my children were exposed to it, and actually scientifically supported fact that rhymes are a great way of doing that. So my son illustrated it, and we self-published this book. So it's out there. As far as my mantra goes, my places and phases and my faces and phrases have all essentially led me to 3 simple messages. Be good, work hard, live well. And here's the kicker. My mom always said, be good. My dad always said, you have to work hard. And if you think about it, you never know whether you're actually being good enough or working hard enough. So you have to develop your own measurement system as you go through life. So in a way, this is a genius of parenting, because I'm constantly trying to be, gooder and work harder. You never know if it's enough, but I've added live well to it. So it gives a bit of perspective, I find. And again, this is something each person will have to define in your own journey. So that's the best part. Namaste.
Thank you all so much for those words of wisdom. And there's many more that I think we could continue this conversation for another hour, but sadly, our time has come to an end. So as we do close today, I want to take just a moment to thank the Quest Advisory Board project team responsible for today's event. Volunteers Amy Ains, June Yu, and Ellen Pensky of Bumblebee Marketing, as well as our friends at Livermore Valley Performing Arts Center and the talented technical crew here at Amos Productions. Thanks as well to the sponsors who made our program possible, beginning with premier sponsor Workday and leading sponsors Sandia Labs, Stanford Valley Care, Form Factor, and the Borchers family. Science does matter, and we're grateful for your partnership. If you enjoyed our program today and you want to help create a more science-minded community, I hope you'll join us to stand for science, especially today on Giving Tuesday. Programs like this virtual conversation are possible because of your support. Our mission at Quest is to inspire and nurture everyday exploration, things that you heard about today, just starting off and being curious, and to continue that lifelong engagement with science and technology. We'd love to have you join us on the journey. You can visit our website, questscience.org, to volunteer, stay up with us on our news on social media, help inspire and engage the next generation of science and engineering leaders. On behalf of the Quest Science Center Board of Directors, staff, advisors, volunteers, as well as these remarkable panelists, thank you for joining us for this virtual conversation. Stay curious and take the time to discover the science all around us. Good night.